wants to install what you see in our administration galleries, as well as the programs that are in conjunction with this installation. So I'm excited for this evening. I also want to add in that Legend will be recording this, so we will be sharing this out as long as everyone is comfortable with that, for those that can't be here this evening. So we're grateful to have this opportunity to talk about an important topic, and I will hand it over to Chris.
Thank you, Tiffany. I'm going to read from my papers. Hello, and welcome to the closing reception of Safety Blankets, Discourse on Neurodivergence, and the panel discussion, Neuro Art Spaces. Like Tiffany said, my name is Carissa Lucille, and I organized this exhibit and program after receiving an Artist to Work Grant Award from the City of Phoenix Office of Arts and Culture. I wanted to first thank Phoenix Art Museum for hosting our art, ideas, and for all the collaboration over the past year and a half. Specifically, I wanted to thank Tiffany for helping us bring our vision to life. Thank you. On our panel today are 4 great individuals. Aaron Davis, based in Seattle, is a versatile creator who employs visual art to narrate stories, amplify voices, and scrutinize the intricacies of our world while exploring interconnected relationships and avenues for transformation. Aaron is one of the Safety Blanket artists with art on display in the exhibit today. Simona Thompson is a collagist and has a background in museums, cultural and historic preservation, and repatriation. They reside with their family on the Gila River Indian community. Sophie Stern is 21 years old and a second-year student at Glendale Community College. She is majoring in dance, and she is in the dance company for Dance Company. She has been dancing for 15 years. She danced at Dance Theater West and danced in high school for 5 years. She has acted with Detour Company Theater since 2012. This season they are doing Mean Girls, and she is playing the role of Karen Smith, which is happening when?
Next weekend, June 7th to the 9th. The Friday show is at 7 p.m. The 8th is at 7 p.m. and the 9th is at 3. You don't need my ticket, just reserve the AC at the Scouts Center from the Nights website, or check out Detour Company Theater Instagram, or the Detour Company Theater website.
Thank you. Sophie works at the Bee's Knees, located in Phoenix, Arizona, and she's an advocate on the Arizona Developmental Disabilities Planning Council. Amy Silverman is a journalist, author, teacher, wife, and mom to Sophie in her hometown in Phoenix. She's an executive producer for the show on KJZZ NPR. Amy's work often focuses on intellectual disability, including how journalists can better include people with IDD in their coverage. You can find her at amysilverman.com. And lastly, a bit about me. I'm a multimedia artist who earned my BFA in journalism and mass communication from ASU in 2014. I'm currently sewing, self-publishing, and running Wasted Ink Zine distro. I use the mediums of textiles, photography, and zines to explore my identity and activism as it relates to disability, neurodivergence, and queerness. Before we jump into our panel questions, I wanted to provide more information about Safety Blankets. In 2023, I expanded the textile series I created, and I invited 14 other artists and contributors, or creators, to submit previous artworks or to create new artworks on their experiences as neurodivergent people. Artists are diverse, group of Black, Indigenous, and people of color, and white folks, many of whom are LGBTQIA+, and they range in age from children to adults. For many of these artists, it was their first time displaying artwork in an exhibit, and especially in a museum. And 5 of the artists are youth under the age of 18 that live in Chicago, and this is one of the pictures of them working on the quilt. The exhibit includes 10 accessible elements like seating, increased font size, COVID precautions, the ability to touch artworks, an audio tour, and more. This was an experimental exhibit, and while nothing is perfect, we should all be continuing to grow, learn, and expand our acceptance and action toward making art spaces more inclusive. Neurodivergent people were considered during each stage of the exhibit and were hired as consultants to assist with the planning and production. Their experiences in art is showcased throughout the displays, published narratives, and audio recordings. They connected with other artists and viewers of their art, which has sparked numerous conversations. And they've all expressed that they've benefited from experiencing an art show about them that is created specifically for them. This is important to consider accessibility in art spaces because it provides a greater opportunity for historically excluded and marginalized voices to experience and be a part of the art. When we see our needs met in the exhibition design itself, trust and community are built. When accessibility and accommodations are considered with every exhibit, it increases the amount of people who will benefit from a thorough art experience. The textiles in the exhibit are colorful quilts of various sizes, woven tapestries, embroidered panels, tactile experiences, and 3D artwork. And today, we are discussing the importance of accessibility and accommodations for neurodivergent and disabled people in traditional and non-traditional art spaces. One of the consultants we had on the project is called Michelle Dawn. Her name's Michelle Dawn, and she did this piece. She's very sad she couldn't be here today. She also did all of our audio recordings and consulted on all the accessibility elements we wanted to include in the exhibit. We also had a program called Many Hands Make a Quilt at the museum where we had youth and adults and even older folks come and stitch, add stitches to the quilt panels, where we will then add all of the quilt blocks together to make a large community quilt. And that happened just a few weeks ago, and it was so much fun. I think people were kind of, I don't know, they seemed surprised to stumble upon a sewing activity in the museum, and they might not have expected it. It was a lot of fun. Here's some more pictures of that. With that information, I would like to turn to our panelists and ask our first panel question. And we can kind of take turns. Not everyone has to answer each question. We can kind of fill in information as we see fit. Does that sound good? All right. The first question is, can you describe a personal experience in an artistic or performance setting where accommodations were provided to you or to others that you saw as beneficial? Does anyone want to answer that question first? Go ahead, Sophie.
I'm in a dance company at my college, GCC, the name of the community college. One of the accommodations is that it gets choreographers and teachers break down the choreography and teach it into sections. It helps me learn the dance in gap tempo and going into separate rooms to learn the dances and go over the notes and speed.
So they slow down the instruction, and you also said that they sometimes move you into a different room, and you find that helpful.
Yeah, and I totally forgot that. I know the section of this question. I'm in a theater company called Teacher Company Theater. It's for adults with disabilities. And my accommodation is that, for that, I to have a paintbrush on stage with me, but I'm not gonna have it for the show. I'm gonna have it backstage. Yeah, wanna get it on? The paintbrush is very sensitive because I have a disability. It helps me calm down. All the accommodations for all the actors are sign language, but deaf and hard of hearing. For rehearsals and shows, they offer large print scripts and closed captions and audio descriptions. So then the audience can follow along.
Those sound like really helpful accommodations.
Yeah.
I bet that really makes it, does it make it a better experience for you overall?
Yeah, it does, because I've been doing the tour for since 2012. That's been like a decades ago. A couple years ago. Yeah, it's helpful for me. I'm trying to not have my paintbrush on stage, so then I don't get distracted. But I'll have it backstage, so then when I go backstage, I can stop it. And yeah.
Sometimes that's like an okay thing to practice. I typically have like a fanny pack on me full of sensory toys that I like to bring with me, and I'm not wearing it right now. But I just took it off in my car, so I know it's waiting for me when I get back. Sometimes it's okay to practice that stuff.
Yeah. And I'm gonna talk about that.
Thank you.
I think for me, some of the accommodations that stick out in my mind are being able to tour a space that I'm going to be a part of the show or participating in some sort of way, getting a sense of how the lighting is, how the sound is in the space, where the exits are, just in case that is like a sensory issue or like a worry for me. And then in the realm of my work, I'm a community health scientist, and I lead a lot of programming within communities of young adults and elders who are either actively experiencing homelessness or who have previously experienced homelessness. And we use art as a healing pathway to build community and build capacity and just really come together. And in my work, people are allowed to show up however they need to, and we meet them where they are. And that's not always the case in art spaces. And so a lot of the spaces that really stick out in my mind that are really great are ones that allow people to show up and sort of present in whatever way they are that day. Some of us might not look the most put together, or might have like auditory, sensory things going on, and just allowing people to be and experience art in a way that's helpful for them is really, really awesome to bear witness to. And then also just having actual accessibility, so ADA compliant spaces where my folks who are in wheelchairs could get in and out of the building and navigate through and experience an artistic setting, just like anyone else who might have different abilities would be able to. And those are just wonderful accommodations that I think should just be standard across the board.
I think so too. It's so helpful just to have like a description, pictures, videos, to really understand where you're walking into. Even having information about parking can be really helpful and will make me feel more comfortable going out to a new place. If I have all the information ahead of time, it's a little less scary for me.
I was going to say, I think that all those accommodations are, first of all, things that should just happen, right? How old is the ADA? More than 30 years. And if anyone's seen the movie Crip Camp, I actually think we've gone backward, not forward. But I think for a lot of people who maybe don't know that they're neurodivergent, and even just for everybody, it's just those kinds of accommodations should be there.
Yes, of course.
We're talking about accommodations. In the movie Coda, there is sign language in the movie, and that's a really good deaf or hard of hearing movie to watch.
I have to check that one out. Thank you for telling me about that. I mean, I can't agree more, especially that movie was very eye-opening for me, and I think many others as well. It's a great movie. But I think you're right, when we're talking about accessibility, some things are trickier than others to achieve, and when we start discussing accessibility and accommodations, it is kind of an endless idea, an endless discussion, and how do we accommodate everyone's needs. But I think some of the easier parts of accessibility are kind of no-brainers. We're like, oh, yeah, we can do that. Let's try it.
Right, some of it should just be understood. But I also think that the importance of the evolution of accommodations and also of the way that we think about people with differences, it is important to recognize. Because I know I've had, as Sophie's mom, a big evolution that's still going on, where I'm learning more and more about people with disabilities. And then as a journalist, learning about the kind of accommodations that we can provide. And one of them is plain language, where you don't dumb down the text at all, that you create it in a way so that it's a little bit easier to access. And one of the things I've learned in my work is that that's not enough by a long shot. Because part of it too is figuring out how to reach the community and get them to be able to access what you have in the first place.
Absolutely. And I toured a few different gallery spaces in Phoenix, and I was just so thankful to find this space because it was, in my mind, accessible. ADA compliant, the restrooms were nearby, there weren't steep steps, and specifically speaking about non-traditional art spaces in Phoenix, it's really tricky. It's really tricky to find a space that people that you're trying to reach can meet you in. So, very thankful for this space.
And I'll shut up after this, but I will say to that point, it's really hard because I think, it's really hard to run an art space, as you know, and then to have it be accessible on all fronts. On top of it, it is a huge challenge for someone who doesn't have the kind of funding that PhxArt Museum has, which is not a knock on PhxArt Museum at all. So it's, different societal issues, right, come into play in different ways.
Absolutely, it is quite layered and complicated. Do you want to add anything?
I know that people with wheelchairs need to have the accessible parking, but I'm like working on everybody else who have a disability and parking. But still, but sometimes I can't hold my foot. So I'm not person.
Thank you. The next question I have for us is, in what ways can galleries, museums, recital halls, and other artistic spaces make their offerings and programs more accessible to you and to others?
I think the first thing that comes to mind for me is like hours and times of day that things are accessible. There's people who are working 9 to 5 who would love to go to an opening of something or to see artwork, but they might not be able to given the schedule. I recently worked with a group of high school students on an art project, and Unfortunately, they weren't able to actually be at the final event because they had school, because there wasn't a consideration about when the event went on for the people it was for. And so I think like having an awareness of who we want to invite into that space, who you're trying to include, and what kind of considerations they need around like when and where this is going to be. Is this a place that they get to? How long can they stay there? Is there a place to sit? And it's like all of those layers. In my mind, would like help the type of folks that the communities that I'm a part of, the folks who I want to see accessing art spaces who historically we have not been able to access art spaces. I think those considerations would make it more tangible.
I think so too. Is there any accommodations that you think would benefit you when you're thinking about re-existing in different artistic spaces?
I think for me, because I'm a mom, I'm a parent, is the place kid friendly? Is it family friendly? Is a whole community friendly exhibit, or is this for some people? That kind of intention that goes into it. I find that a lot of spaces are not for me and my kids, maybe for me, but it's not really for them, and like that sucks because you want some folks who experience art to be influenced by this and to be absorbing all of these awesome creative things, and if they can't go to a place, if it's not there and if they're not welcome there, then how are they going to have a lifetime of building a connection with different mediums and outlets for expression?
No, that makes total sense, and I definitely see that before as well. I think you're so right that we need to be considering who the space is designed for. We want to come and visit. And if we really do want families and everyone's coming to visit, then we have to consider what that means for other people.
And that trickles over to the cost of entry for the spaces as well. Is there a barrier to entry, and have you considered what that barrier might be for different folks?
Yeah, that's so true.
I also think promotion is really important.
Yeah.
Figuring out how to find people and then help them get to the event. But particularly for people from disenfranchised communities, they may not have access to the information about something like this.
I also, I wrote all the answers. It is relevant to produce closed captions, ramps for wheelchairs, automated descriptions, large plain language, including more artists with people with disabilities, places to sit, and places to sit and take a break. Step outside and take some deep breaths.
I like that. I definitely take deep breaths outside as much as possible.
I'm gonna do that because I had a bomb night last week. Can you hear me? Okay. Can you hear me? Yeah.
I like your point about promotion. I don't really know if this answers the question or not, but the experience I had, like the first exhibit that I was a part of was a group exhibit, and it was during COVID. So it was, I just sent in my art and my zines, and it was in New Orleans at the Antenna Room with other zine artists, and it was more of like, if you were there or local, or virtual, they put it up on the website. And then, so that was a good experience, but then my first time being a solo exhibit was not a great experience at all. I feel like the person helped me a lot, and the one who helped me to do everything, and so it was a great experience with them. put together an artist statement and like putting up my art on the wall and everything, you know, that had to do with it. So that part was great, but the other part of the other people handled was not a great experience, and the promotion wasn't done well, and I feel like those people knew me well enough that they should know, you know, that I am autistic and that I don't communicate the same way, and also as an indigenous artist, my collage work is not what people would call Native American art, because the medium versus collage, but also a lot of my work, it features not just indigenous people, but Black people, because I have my children are Black and Native, and I've had a lot of comments from people asking, like, I don't know, why isn't it traditional Native American art? Why there's so many Black people in my art? And so I think, and I also do a lot of like social issues, you know, like what's going on in our communities, and part of that exhibit was like a series I did called Disabled Black Indigenous Boys in the System in the Time of COVID-19, because my kids were, they were incarcerated, they were in juvenile, foster care, group home, shelter, rehab, for like the past 4 years on probation. There's all kinds of stuff that happened with them. So, and that started like during COVID. So a lot of times my art gets overlooked, and I felt like that was my experience with that particular gallery. And I just felt like even that it wasn't promoted well, and it was on their Instagram, and then they took it off. And then when it came to the day of, they didn't introduce me, and they didn't direct anybody into the exhibit, and I was the main booth, and they didn't tell anybody to go to the booth. And so I just feel like that people should have really shown me more respect, and it's really sad because I don't ever want to do an exhibit again, quite honestly. But I just think that people should be better at communicating with people and also being respectful of their art, and as a Native person, to not put, as a disabled Native person, you know, to not put us in a box that we have to have a particular type of art, that if it doesn't look like Native American culture, and that's all it is, and it's not Native American art. So, I'm sorry if that doesn't make any sense to what you were asking.
No, it made perfect sense. And if you're Native American and you make art, then it's Native American art. But I also think that, putting yourself out there for a solo, I've never done it, I'm not an artist, a solo art exhibition, I can't imagine how hard that is, just even agreeing to do it. And so I'm really sorry that you went through that. And I don't blame you for not wanting to do it again, but I hope you do, because I didn't know about your show, and I really would have loved to come.
I want to mention, I'm excited about your kids. I also had the career experience, but I'm going to say the first one because it is on topic.
Thank you for sharing. And I think that it is so tricky to navigate traditional art spaces, non-traditional art spaces, and the promotion. I've had mixed experiences in my own art, and I know how disappointing it is to put up a whole exhibit in a non-traditional space and there's not any promotion done. And it falls back on us as artists to promote our own work. And that becomes tricky because we're not experts in everything. We shouldn't be doing all of that. And I don't know, there are possibly maybe better ways for our non-artistic and or non-traditional and traditional art spaces to communicate with their artists and how they want to be represented, and then follow through on that and execute.
I have a question. Is that okay?
Oh,
Sorry.
yeah.
Occupational hazard. It would be a good band name. So. I'm always interested in the pros and cons of having an exhibition that is specific to something, so say specific to neurodiversity, versus being more inclusive of all kinds of artists in, say, a group show that's, I don't know, the theme is boats, you know. I personally think you need to do both, but I also think that being able to include other artists' work who would traditionally probably be considered outside, alongside the insiders, is one way to educate people about other artists, so that then when they see that someone's having a solo exhibition, they can say, I saw their art, you know, in this group show, and now I get to experience more of it. So I think there needs to be inclusion in all kinds of ways.
I think so too, and I think that like inclusion is such a weighted word, and when we're talking about inclusion, there will always be levels of exclusion. That's like a truly 100% truly inclusive space. I don't know if that really exists. So, you know, like I said, we can do our best, and still nothing's perfect. Even with the right intentions, all the plans in the world, all the budget in the world, it's tricky to achieve inclusivity. And what does inclusivity mean? And who are we excluding with our inclusivity? Like yeah, there's a lot to consider there, for sure.
It's always a work in progress.
Yes, absolutely, definitely. Yeah.
I had some thoughts that came up. I think that galleries and art spaces need to be really intentional about what they're trying to do, what they're trying to get out of artists by, inviting in folks who are, let's say, outside of the traditional, like, fine art establishment, and be cognizant of not trying to tokenize people or treat them as a monolith. Especially when inviting in people of color, inviting in historically marginalized folks. We're not all going to be the same. Our visions, our hearts, our expression is going to be different. And while, there may be a collective group that falls in line with one another, we can't make the assumption, that it's all going to or that it has to. And I think that art spaces really need to unpack why they're trying to invite people in. Are they trying to tokenize people? Are they trying to, have some sort of association by proximity and benefit from that? Or are they really trying to uplift these communities, uplift these voices, include them in, whatever the programming is that's going on, and elevate these folks who are outside of this, ease of access to these spaces? And, if your intentions don't align, then I think you need to take several steps back and just reassess what it is you're trying to do here. One additional thing, I think when you're working with people who are outside of the traditional art establishment, I consider myself one of those people, I think you cannot make assumptions that every person is going to know all of the steps and things and trappings that you need to be included in the gallery. Like, maybe I don't know that I need to have my own bio ready, or the limits of what that needs to look like, or just all of these other little things that go on with being included in art spaces or being included in our shows. I think it's really dangerous when you make an assumption that everyone knows how it's supposed to go, because then it others people who don't understand that, or who don't have that, pre-existing knowledge through access that they've had previously in their life, or like other people who we've seen in the show, and that can be really exclusionary. And so we need to be aware of that as well when we go to these spaces.
And open to someone else's way of doing things, instead of just always expecting that they'll know the traditional way. But I think you made such a great point, Erin, because simply inviting people to exhibit, or to come to your exhibition is the absolute bare minimum, right? That's it, right? And so then you have a whole range of things that you have to do to make it truly inclusive. And I know that Sophie has seen that a lot. She's been included in a lot of things, and I think with different, with varying results, you know, as to whether or not she truly felt like she was celebrated along with everyone else, and lifted up.
I want to add about accommodations. In my middle school, they only had theater class for the gifted kids, not for the mainstream classes. And I really love theater. And I'm like, come on, like I need theater, like. So I went to the person who was the director of the gifted classrooms, and I said, I need a theater class, and that's that. And I bugged him every single day until he gave it to me.
No, he didn't. He's not the one who did it.
No, he did not know who did it, but I told him to do it.
Well, what happened was he then emailed me and said, tell Sophie to stop asking. That didn't go well for him.
But then it did happen. And then I went to high school and that happened too, sorry.
You have fought very hard to be.
Yes, I did. And now I'm on.
I wanted to, what was it? Something to consider, like for me, I remember when we were talking about, for the gallery is putting prices on art, and the ones I showed, most of them I would never sell them, maybe some of them, but even if I did, for me, I don't understand those kind of things. Like, say for instance, you know, when you're like, so on a scale of 0 to 5, you know, how do you feel about this? You know, 1 being sad, or, you know, 5 being happy, or something like that. Or sometimes they're weak. I don't understand those kind of questions. So I just pick the middle, I pick neutral. So it's the same thing for me with pricing. I don't understand that. It doesn't make sense to me. And I don't know what I'm supposed to do. So I'm gonna depend on somebody else to tell me. But I don't know if somebody is trying to get over on me, you know? And so I really don't understand that at all. So it's just something to be able to help somebody to understand what it means and the value of something, because I've had people pay me for my collages, you know, like very minimal to like hundreds of dollars, you know? And so I guess it just, and I don't sell my art for that reason, because I don't know how to price it. And I don't understand it, so I don't even do it. I've done it before, but I usually do like prints, you know, and like 5 by 7 or whatever the size is, and maybe like $10 or something. But I just don't like to sell it because I don't understand, and then I have to go ask somebody else, and I feel like I'm bothering somebody because I don't understand how to price things, and it's just a big thing I don't like to ask people. Or because I don't know how to do that, so.
Aaron and I were actually talking about pricing artwork today because it's such a tricky thing, and some art places require you to sell your artwork to display it, and there are quilts that I will not sell, so I am not usually able to submit to those art shows because I actually don't want my quilts to sell. Or then I have to like make up a number that's ridiculous, and people will balk at it and not buy it. And I'm like, good, it's not actually for sale. So pricing your work is really challenging. And Aaron, you're so right that people shouldn't assume that everyone knows how to do an art bio, an artist CV, or like all of these that go into representing yourself as an artist. And putting your artwork in a show. It's not even taught well in schools, so it's...
Right, a lot of people don't.
How do you market yourself as an artist?
Yeah, for the bio, like when I read other people's bios, like I really like what they write, and it's, I think it's amazing, you know, and I'm like, oh, this makes sense, and I wish I could say that. When it comes to me, like, I have a hard time getting what's in my brain out into the paper. So I don't understand, and it's really frustrating because that's why when I give you my bio, it's very simple. Because I don't have to describe to you what my art's about. Like, I just don't want to do that because I don't know how to describe it, you know, with these words that I don't know how to use. So, like, what if you ask me, I would just be like, there's flowers in there. There's like birds and, there's African diaspora and indigenous peoples and across the globe. And then these are the social issues that I cover, like school to prison pipeline and the foster care system, or just all kinds of different themes that matter to me, but I don't know how to describe it in a very articulate way. So I end up giving my bio, and it's very, very simple.
But you just described it beautifully.
I think so too.
I don't think so.
But
And that's how we all feel about writing.
I so relate because I made safety blankets, the original, 6 quilts and textiles, as a way to exemplify my experience as a neurodivergent person. And then when I had to go and write the grant, I was like, wait, I made these quilts because I don't have the words. And now I have to sit here and come up with words, which was pretty tricky. But I'm grateful that I wrote the grant so that we could all be here today and have the exhibition. But yeah, it's really hard, especially when we're talking about our own neurodivergence, to put words to that, and then to describe our artworks that depict our experience. It's not easy.
You just gotta write like you talk. And I know I make it sound easy, and it's not. And I always say the same thing about like the distance from your brain to the paper is like 1,000,000 miles, and it's so hard to get because you got it. I always have it right in there, and then as soon as I put it on paper, it's just not what I was expecting.
You know, I really do like your writing because it is very conversational, and it makes me feel like I'm sitting here talking with you when I read your writing. So, I think, Sophie, you brought up something that it leads really nicely to our next question. You talked about having to advocate for yourself, for your accommodations, and for just regular activities that you want to do in life. So the next question, the final question that we have before opening it up to the audience is, what works when advocating for yourself or others in artistic spaces? How do you approach it to have success?
I have a mini story that I have a story that is me advocating for myself. When I was in high school, I was in a production of Hairspray, and the R word was in the script, and that word is not okay for people who have disabilities. It is hurtful. No one wanted the drug it, but I did. I asked if we take the word out. He would not listen to me, so my mom came and sat with him and explained how it's bad. And told him to take another word. He did. It took a while. You need to be persistent and keep asking until you get accommodations. Until you get accommodations. Because you need them more than you want them. Sometimes you need help. You should ask the person who can trust you and that can help you trust, can help you to be independent and do all things, to do yourself.
And I just have to say, he'd already made that decision to take it out after what you said. Yeah, it didn't matter what I had to say.
Oh, I would add, the need to be persistent.
No, it's kind of a shame that we do have to be persistent, right? That we do have to advocate for ourselves. And sometimes we do have to bring in reports and statistics and other people, and just to say, actually, no, this does matter. So this is what is needed. Yeah, I'm happy it was successful advocacy, but still
It wasn't very hard to get there, but it worked, and it was outskirts, and he gave a little like a description under the that situation, but not the situation about how it's not, how the horizontal about like as well as he added it like on the script.
And everybody knows what Sophie means by the R word, I'm guessing. And that's in the original musical script. And I don't remember what year. Yeah, I don't remember. Yeah, it is also in Mean Girls. I don't remember what year the musical Hairspray. But it was a while ago, and it is John Waters. But to keep that in a high school production and to say, well, we're not allowed to change the script that was hard.
Also, I don't like it because the Evans is also in the movie, so yeah.
Sure. The question is, what works when advocating for yourself or others in artistic spaces?
I don't always say weird stuff. I think that having worked at a museum and working with museums as working for my tribe and then working at a museum and our museum, I learned to speak up, not just for myself as an artist, but like other artists, to say the things that were not heard when I was sitting at the table with people who make the decisions, people that are directors of programs and like CEOs or whoever at the museum, and they say what you want to say, and they say it, and then they don't like it, and then you are no longer going to be here after your contract is up. So, but you know what, I knew that, and I said it anyway, because and I said it in a very respectful way, but they asked, so I said it, and if I didn't say it at the table, then all of those other voices who have said it so many times, they can't say, oh, we never heard that before, I didn't know that was a problem. Everybody heard it. Everybody in all of administration heard it, and that's all I have to say about it. And I didn't regret it, and that was like at the beginning that I had a fellowship, and I knew that I wasn't going to be returning because of that and many other things, and I knew that I was being, pushed out slowly, and but I didn't, it mattered, but it didn't, because it was a great experience, but also I feel like I stood up for myself, and I stood up for other people, and they got to the table. Whether they do anything about it, I don't know. But I think it did make a difference, because other people did come to me and say, I'm really proud of you that you said what you said, and that meant a lot to me, So I guess my advice is to just whatever values you have, and whatever is right. I've been in a lot of my life and my career, not just in museums, but like cultural preservation and other places. I have been pushed out because I always stand up for myself. But for me, especially as an artist, and for me as
in every instance to not only advocate for ourselves, but also advocate for others. And I so appreciated what you said about saying what you needed to say, because then there might not be other people that have their voices at the table to say the same thing. And sometimes repeating it over and over and over again is the only way things might change, which is not a good thing. But sometimes it's the way it goes.
So I think something that's worked for me is being really loud. And quite honestly, like very loud about what needs to happen or where the inequity is, and choosing that hill to die on. Also leveraging the power of those who are in a better position than I am, who hold more power, who hold more privilege. I can think of an example recently. Over this last month, I helped pull off a 2-day youth art policy activation event, and mentored and steered a cohort of young adults and youth to create a third space concept full of art and political agendas that they wanted to highlight at the state level, and they wanted policymakers to be aware of. It's all through lens engagements of art. Some of the folks who were in my cohort were experiencing homelessness actively, and their contribution was a cultural Azteca dance ceremony opening for our event. But the event coordinators really just slept on the fact that this person was experiencing homelessness and sort of missed the disturbing optics of having this person come in unrested without a place to go, to come and dance for a bunch of politicians at this 2-day event. And so I had a sidebar with my boss, who is very well known in the area, and I told her that she needed to back me in making the event and be the folks who were putting off the event to pay for a hotel room for a person to stay in so that they could come to this event rested, freshly showered, refreshed, and feeling as awesome as they needed to pull off this event with all the dignity that they deserved. And I got my boss to help me bring this up in a meeting with the folks and the funders, and jaws hit the floor. They were just shocked that they didn't think about the considerations of some of the people and where they're coming from, that they're inviting in to then go and literally dance for a bunch of white folks. The optics were really bad. But I strategically, leveraged my boss, who has so much more power and privilege than I'll ever have, to help bring up that conversation and keep everyone focused and grounded in the reality of, what we were asking this person to do. And, of course, they were like, we'll pay for a 2-day hotel room. Sure, absolutely, whatever this person needs. But it's that kind of awareness of the room that you're entering in, and reading of the situation fully and looking at people with full humanity and thinking about what do they need to be here and to be a participant in this? What are we asking of them? Not to advocacy comes in and being loud works.
Well, and also being willing to tell someone what they, where they're falling a little bit short and need to fix something. Because I think we often can walk away from a situation like that. Just say, you know what, these people are messed up, they don't know what they're doing, I don't want to be a part of it. But to have the grace to take someone aside, even when you should not have to, this is horrifying, to say, I'm gonna, sort of in an unspoken way, I'm gonna give you permission to fix it, and then to think about it moving forward and do even better. So one of the things I've had to learn in working as an advocate alongside Sophie, who's a way better advocate for herself than I've ever been, and getting better all the time, is that you can't draw a line in the sand. You have to give people permission to catch up a little bit. And one of the things I do in my work is edit a disability language style guide. And at first, when we came out with it, I saw it kind of as a line in the sand. If somebody doesn't use people first language, then they're garbage. Now, then you come to learn, well, no, that's not even, there's nothing you can hold on to. Maybe not using the R word, but language changes constantly. Everybody has their own way that they want to be referred to, and I have a plate at home that says, do your best. And that's what I try to think about all the time. It's just, I try to do it too because I mess up. You don't want to create a space where people feel like it's so difficult that they won't even approach. But it's also not fair to have to do it. So those two things I think can live at once.
I think you're so right, and I'm seeing more conversation about accessibility. I'm seeing more conversation about inclusivity and accommodations, and maybe we should think about this. It's not that hard to do. We didn't know it was even a problem. How can we change it? How we can implement that across the board? That's easy. That's fine. And some things are more challenging, of course, but I'm really grateful that the conversation is existing and occurring more frequently. And it is because of our fierce advocacy for ourselves, for others, when we say, hey, that's actually maybe we should change that language, maybe we should change this procedure, or maybe do this program. And it's also because more and more people are asking for that. It makes a lot of sense. So, do you have something to say, Sophie? Yeah?
I was trying to do it slow, but slow. You need to be it's kind of hard because I take emotionally things differently than other people. Like when I was waiting in college a few years ago, and that was really trying for me. He was black. He was a big part of that was not a stuff, and it's really sad for me because that's it one time in high school. It's been the only one in high school. It was really, really, really hard for me. And yesterday, I know it was off topic, but I was sent back to my sister Annabelle, who is going back to Oregon, and on the way back, I started Backlash. My dad said, this is awesome. No, it's not.
Yeah, someone had managed to get their car up on kind of a ledge. Everybody was okay.
Everyone was okay.
Sophie processes it differently. But I think bringing it back around to what we were talking about,
It's just really important to try to meet people where they are and to recognize that people process emotional things and all kinds of things differently, and that could certainly impact the way an artist approaches bringing their work into the world, because that's really what we're talking about. And it's so hard when you're a creative person to put yourself out there like that. And so having people understand everybody, just trying to be more understanding of everyone, I think is really important.
I think so too. Thank you all for sharing so much and so generously with us. I'm so thankful that you're all here in this space to share your experiences with us and how we can all consider artistic spaces a little bit differently. So I wanted to thank you each individually for being here and sharing with us. I'm very thankful. We wanted to see if the audience had any questions for our panelists. I'll run around with my mic and then any questions. Comments.
I speak pretty loud, so thank you all for sharing. I am a fabric artist, and I am trying to start creating spaces that are more meaningful. And I came here because I wanted to hear what you all have to say. I wanted to hear your stories. I wanted to understand what your challenges were, and to make sure that I am being as inclusive as I can, and learning what my blind spots are. And I didn't even know that neurodivergent was a thing until like 3 weeks ago when I was on an art panel, and I'm going through a whole bunch of grant applications, and they're like, how do they go beyond ADA compliance? And I'm like, well, I'm like reading all these things, like, wow, like there's so much that I'm not even, you know, aware of. So I think for me, learning that there's more than ADA compliance from all of you is very important. But can you give me, whatever your thoughts are, if I created a space for a community art event, how do I go beyond ADA compliance for those folks? And it's for the entire community. I'm not just specifically looking, right, for anyone who's neurodivergent. I'm including everyone, but I want to make sure that everyone can come and be able to show up how they want to and have what they need. And so how do I go beyond just the facility and the venue and the spacing, so someone, you know, the ramps, like how do I go beyond that?
Invite them in for a conversation. I hold a listening session where you invite in folks who want to access that space, who might have a hard time accessing that space, and like use that language in your outreach, and say, I want to hear from you, I want to hear how we can make this work, and let's do this collaboratively. Invite them in, take notes, listen, and go back to them and say, this is what I'm going to do, how does this sound?
Okay.
That's really what I did for the accessibility elements that are included in safety blankets. I did hire a consultant, and of course this one person who is disabled can't speak for everyone.
Right.
And so there were some challenges with that too. So we had to bring in other people and have lots of conversations, like Erin was saying, just conversations really help. I also leaned on the Institute of Human Design. That was really helpful. They have like so many standard practices that can be adopted, elements that you can consider in art spaces, and to continue with the, like, just saying that conversations are important. Tiffany and I really went back and forth about a lot of the elements of what's doable in the space, what's challenging, how can we kind of get around any barriers we experienced. So working really closely with your venue and the gallery leaders in that space is really helpful too. It's a lot of like discussion, almost negotiation, like how, okay, we can't do this because we're limited by the physical structure of the building. How can we change it? How can we do this? How can we make it a little bit easier? Yeah. And I need your information because I want to come to that. We all want to come to that.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thanks for being here.
I meant to say this, but to include it, I guess, when including people. I guess for me, as an autistic person, and just who I'm around all the time, other neurodivergent people, but a lot of us are non-binary, or identify as queer or something. So it's really important, like me, I identify as non-binary too. So asking people like, what are your pronouns? It's they, them, and first, and so that you can identify them and what they prefer to be called. I think that's really important. It's just the spaces I've been in, pretty much everybody identifies that way. So I think that, I don't know, just speaking as an autistic person and my experience. So I just think that's important to know that.
You're so right, and it's kind of silly of me because I am just so used to being around non-binary people that I didn't even like include because I'm like, we're all here, we're all non-binary, but you're right, it is really important to make sure that people are identified exactly the way they want to be represented. And you'll see all the artists in the gallery have their pronouns with their artwork because that is a part of the story. A lot of neurodivergent people identify as LGBTQIA+, queer, something underneath that umbrella. And having that specific language that identifies us is really important. Thank you for bringing that up.
I was just going to say one more thing, which I think is you can do all the planning in the world,
Yes.
and then you get to your event, and you're like, Right, like they had high chairs up for us initially, and they were very kind and switched them out because Sophie didn't feel comfortable with that. So, and then again, you just can't beat yourself up, you know?
Right.
Yeah, pivoting is essential. Thank you. Is there any other questions comments that people have?
Mine's not a question, but it is a comment. Thank you all so much for having this conversation, for being open and allowing us to learn, because I do think it is a process and a continuous conversation to have amongst ourselves, but also with each other. So I just want to say thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for listening to us and our ideas and all these things. I was like, I came in hot with all these plans and thinking was like, we're gonna make it happen. Let's see if we can make it work. So thank you.
You're hitting the mic.
I was wondering if this is really hyper specific, but when it comes to bios, since they are really difficult to write, and especially if you don't have the pre-existing knowledge of it, would an alternative, like an audio component, being able to speak instead of write, would that be, how would you feel about that, I guess?
I think that would be awesome. We have, in the gallery, each piece has its own little audio clip of the description of the piece. And I think that's so helpful to just listen to it. But I haven't actually thought about including a bio that's read by the person or someone else. I think that's such a great idea.
It's also,
Yeah, well, it's been, I don't know, maybe it was 2017, but I think I made a poem or a collage or something, and I included it, and I don't know if there's still around, but it was, I found them on X or Twitter. It was called the Deaf Poet Society, and I'm very familiar with that. It's for disabled people, right? I can't remember what it was for, but I'm assuming that's what it was. But it's called Deaf Poet Society, and they had on their website, they would feature your art and your bio and whatever in your poetry, and then they have an audio clip reading all of that out so people could hear it instead of you. And I really love that. I would prefer that than written, because I can say it better.
but also if you're thinking about how you're gonna compose your bio, you can do it, you can record it, and then you can transcribe it. From the right, like you taught, category. A lot of people do that.
My favorite trick for writing my bio is to have someone else write it for me. I'm like, I have so many creative, great writing friends. I'm like, okay, here are my accolades, here are my accomplishments. Please draft something, and then of course I doctor it up to sound like my voice just a little bit. But that's one trick, because writing about yourself is really challenging. And especially writing about yourself in a way that sounds accomplished, and these are all the amazing things I've done. It's like we're not taught as a society that that's a good thing to do, so it's kind of counterintuitive almost. Yeah. Any other questions? Yes.
Going off of that, I think, thank you. Going off of that, I think you just mentioned about leaning on friends to help you with things. How do we build communities that can support each other in the art world, especially if it's not always something that happens already naturally?
So how do we better build community in the art world? Is that the question? Does anyone want to answer that?
Support each other. You have done it.
I was gonna say, you do a really great example of it with, it was the Bad Art Night, or what's it called?
Bad Art Club.
Bad Art Club, having accessible art group spaces and meetings and opportunities to engage in the art regularly that are really low barrier. I think that's a beautiful way to plant the seed and get people, as many people in as you can. You do that regularly with every open type of engagement that you do and the consideration that you put in, because you want like a wide breadth of people to come in. You do that wonderfully, like every freaking week.
You're so kind, thank you. And it's kind of amazing because
yeah.
Corinne is the person who actually puts on that art show after sleep, so you're really also complimenting Corinne on their hard work as well.
I don't know if this has anything, or it probably does. I'm just talking from my experience as an artist, especially somebody who doesn't have money. Like a lot of times it comes down to mutual aid, like even helping people to eat, or help with supplies or something. You know, for me, collage is like, you know, magazines, whether they're used or, you know, they're brand new, or and the new magazines now are like $15 each or something, or glue sticks, like whatever, you know, or paper, or, you know, art supplies, because I could go and I take my sons with me because I have 2 sons and they're artists too. So when I go, I can spend about like $200 very easily, you know, on just paper and that. But I mean, just surviving, I think, because that's what I do from most of my friends are artists. I'm pretty sure most of them are, you know, and so like we always depend on each other and we go around with the same money. Like here's $20, and then you just go around and here's $20, you know, and so like we help each other to live, you know, and so I think it even come to have that space to be able to know that you have somebody, if they can help you, they will. If they can't, they'll pass it along, you know. And so like when I post on social media, if I need help, I know most of these people for a long time, so if they pass it along and I don't get any kind of funds or anything, I never get like disappointed or upset about it or sad, because I know these people and I know they would help me if they could. And that to me feels like community, where I'm just like, I know they'd help me if they could, you know. And I don't know, that's for me, and also what Krista does is wonderful. And I've known Krista for almost 10 years, and everything I've learned so much from them, and in the spaces that we've been in together, and I've always been included in their spaces all the time. And so I'm really happy to know you, and that you included me right now, you know, because that means a lot, especially for me. I feel like, especially as a Native person, that, you know, unless you're really well known, people aren't going to see you. And especially the art that I make, people really don't see me. So that means a lot to me.
I'm so glad that you brought up like the need for basic needs being met in order to enter these spaces as well. That's something that I try to do in all of my community groups that I run. I usually bring like as much food as I could require, snacks, drinks, bus passes for folks if they need to like have a ride to get back or things like that. We really try and make it where there's resources available there so that you could actually enjoy the art activity, you could really engage in the things, and like you don't have to worry about your most basic needs being consistently unmet because you've had some of them filled in that situation as well. So I think considering like art spaces as multi-use opportunities and touch points to like meet people's basic needs, to share resources, to uplift one another beyond just the art engagement, but to really build that community capacity and try and like build this larger package. Like, yes, let's do some harm reduction training while we're doing some art as well, because we're all here anyway, and it's all for the greater good and the benefit of us all, so why not? It just seemed like how much you could really get out of, you know, this interaction, this touch point with everyone. How much building can you do in an hour, you know?
Phoenix is a really hard place to find community in general, in all the ways. It's gotten better, but it's still really hard. Everything's hidden. But it's also a place where one person can make a huge difference, like Carissa has. So, no, there's a challenge to everybody. Be like Carissa.
Speaking of my mom's side, Carissa has done so many good things. They opened This Would Ink this show in Phoenix, Arizona. If you've not been, you need to go. I've been so many times, and I feel that you should make a zine about some advocacy and stuff about that. So I'm gonna go ahead.
We're gonna make that zine together.
So you'll put up pictures and put pictures in it.
Yes, thank you so much.
Love you.
So nice. I promise I did not just stack this panel with my besties. Clearly all.
Yes, you did.
But thank you once again for joining us this evening. We call you to consider accessibility in your day-to-day lives and the ways that you create and display art. On your way out, please sign our guest book in the gallery and enjoy the quilts. And you can also look for resources and further announcements on our Safety Blankets Instagram.